Kevin is president of Clayton Homes, which is recognized as an innovator in manufactured homes. Kevin was pivotal in closing the sale of Clayton Homes to Berkshire Hathaway. Warren mentioned that the driving force behind the company's success is Kevin Clayton. Please welcome Kevin.
Thanks.
Kevin, you're going to build 56,000 homes this year. You're now the largest manufacturer of homes, builder of homes in the United States, and you're recently shifting into buying site-built home builders. Can you talk about becoming the largest U.S. home builder?
Yeah, thank you. So Bob and I met 15 years ago and did an interview, and you're the only reason why when somebody Googles my name, there actually is something out there. And it's because I did an interview with Bob, which was a great interview, and you do a wonderful job. I wish I would have been like you and been a disciple of Warren long before he acquired Clayton Homes, because it's been, I could have avoided a lot of hardships in my life if I would have followed his model closer in my early years. But it's been an incredible privilege to be part of Berkshire Hathaway. I know we'll talk about arriving here today in Omaha I look forward to it all year long. We were a public company for 20 years, in the rat race of quarterly press releases and earnings and road shows. That you don't realize until you're away from that how much it takes away from you being focused on running the business and doing what can really help the business grow. So arriving in Omaha, which I really feel like a public company only now through Saturday, because it's really the only thing I have to do. I mean, I don't have a board of directors. I have a senior management team. It was 12. I've gotten it down to 8 recently. I think it'll work more efficiently at 8, but I treat them kind of like a board, and but arriving here in Omaha is just really exciting, and I'm glad to start it off here at this campus, because the next few days I'm so privileged to get to do dinners and some manager meetings, and it's all voluntary, but you'd be a fool not to take advantage of it. So I look forward to the next few days. It has been a lot of fun. So when Warren acquired us, I think we were building 19,000 homes 15 years ago. We'll build 56,000 homes this year. That'll make us the largest home builder in the country. And it made sense to just a couple of us in the senior management ranks. It would have been we probably would have never done it years ago, but it made sense to go ahead and do other forms of housing. We were already building, we were neck and neck with the largest home builder in America just by building a factory-built, what we call off-site construction now. This terminology stuff is all changing really cool and quick. And because you have someone like us with our background, we're kind of shaking up the site-built housing world, because they know that there's a big labor shortage out there, and our method of building in a controlled environment where the scrap and waste of one of our homes fits in a 30-gallon waste container, I mean, it is really the most sustainable building method there is. So how we can incorporate that into the site-built housing world, people are watching closely. And that's why it really made sense for us to do that, because you can, and I'll share with you kind of what we look for, you'll see Warren Buffett's fingerprints all over what I'm getting ready to tell you, is how we kind of got into that business. We went to Denver and acquired Oakwood Homes out there, who's considered one of the most innovative builders in the country. And he was interested in us because we build indoors. Well, you all know how the Denver market's on fire. So we're in Denver, Colorado Springs, and Utah. And Pat Hamill, who runs that company and created it, 100% of all the 1,500 houses we build out there this year will be from his 2 panelization plants. So he's already doing a form of factory-built housing. And so that's kind of what we're getting ready to come out of the ground now using Berkshire Capital, a panelization plant outside of Nashville, Tennessee, another great housing market. And, so here's what we look for. First of all, I talked to Warren several different times as we were developing, and exploring getting into that area. And we built, using Warren's, being around him now for so long, you kind of knew the financial metrics that he would like. And so I kind of came up with those, and really that was the easy part. I mean, you obviously got to have a great return on capital, and we look at how fast, we're going to have to pay some goodwill for these home builders. We wanted to pay that off in less than 2 years. So if the founder of these companies we're buying went away, we would still, be able to take over the land at a reasonable cost and work our way through it, just things like that. But the real thing that we built out was 4 criteria that we look for before we'll acquire a site-built housing company. And if we'll stick to these disciplines, we'll continue, I think, to do well. We've acquired 6 home builders now, and now we're helping them with Berkshire Capital.
6 in the last 2 years?
Correct. And so the first thing is we want to find, just like Warren does, he wants to find a great owner-operator, preferably that built the company from the ground up, and they're committed to stay on after they sell to us, just like me and everybody else generally. Second thing is we want a leader of that company that has survived a downturn, because another one's coming. It won't be that far. It won't be that far off, and we're so fortunate to be part of Berkshire, because Warren thinks 100 years out. He has no concern about the next downturn in housing. And our site builders that we've acquired, they picked up on that, and they look forward to the next downturn, because they've been through it before, and with Berkshire Capital, they know how to really take advantage of that by buying lots, at the bottom of the market, and then that's where you really make the money. So the third criteria is that we want the home builder to be in the entry level or mid-price point. We don't want anybody that's in the higher end housing market. That's the first to get hurt. It's not who we are. It's not our DNA. And then the final one is to be a customer-focused company. We don't want them unless they can show us that they really are measuring customer satisfaction, they do something about it, and they rank very highly. And so, Warren, a couple of years ago, I know he shared publicly that if he could implant one gene into his companies, it would be that they're a customer-focused organization. We were moving in that direction. We've used the Net Promoter Score system like Harley, Chick-fil-A, Southwest, a lot of great companies use. We've been on that for about 8 years, but we really took it to a whole nother level. When Warren made that statement, we were on a journey, but we've really sped up that. So sorry for the long-winded answer to why we got into the site-built housing. And I'll just add on to that. It made sense for other reasons too. For instance, being with our purchasing power, and then we now have distribution centers and supply companies across the U.S. So we built our own windows in 2 areas of the country. We built our own cabinets and trusses and wall boards and all that. So, leveraging that for the site builders. And we're like Warren, we're not forcing our site builders that they have to use our windows and other components, but the first one just started because they wanted to, and they see the value in it, and it'll happen, but we're not going to force it.
You're easy to interview, Kevin, because you give answers and you also ask yourself questions. But I'm wondering...
As a lawyer, he trained me. He said, when somebody asks you a question, just answer the question you want to answer. So, sorry.
Well, I wonder if you could take us back in time to when Warren, I believe, contacted you after reading your father's book, and then your father contacted you. If you could take us back through the anatomy of an acquisition of Clayton Homes.
Yeah, that was at a time in 2003 when manufactured housing went through a housing downturn about 5 years before site-built housing did. And that's because Wall Street opened up and allowed 26 lenders in manufactured housing to all have access to the securitization market. And there was just anybody that had a heartbeat could get a loan on a manufactured home. And so that was my toughest days running a company, was when we weren't going to give away our finance company like others were to sell more homes. And so we were securitizing, so not only I was running a public company, which is a lot of work, but also we were begging for $2 billion a year so that our customers who bought a home could get a mortgage with us. We were getting as a premium, so when you sell $100 million in mortgages, you might get $102 million. That works well, but when you're only getting 90 cents on the dollar, you're going to run out of cash at some point, and that's what was happening to us. We would have survived, but we saw that company. We were publicly traded, so yeah, Warren read the book, because Tennessee was one of the first classes that Warren started allowing to come to Omaha, and he would take them to lunch. And the book was shared with him. He called my dad's phone. My dad was skiing, not good reception. He says he trusted me to return the call. He did. He flipped it to me. I returned the call and started that discussion. And as you've heard about Warren, it's a pretty quick process, and this is still true. I mean, I've pitched a few companies to Warren, and he has a strike zone, right? You've heard him talk about it. He's got this strike zone, and he knows his competency area, and he's not going to get out of that. So it's really quick and easy for him. I mean, I've thrown him some restaurant ideas, and he was, no. Now, he'd probably buy Chick-fil-A, but you know, but he just quickly, he could say no. But if it is in his strike zone, then he'll say, send me a small package. Usually it's just public information. And then if he likes that, then with his network of people that he knows, he can flat check an individual out or a company in a matter of minutes. And if he likes it, he comes up with a price really quick, and he lets you know what that price is, and there's not any negotiating. So that's what he did with us. He said $12.50, and I said, well, let me talk to the board. I mean, we might be in the ballpark of 20. He said, Kevin, there's no way I can repay you for all the work you and your dad have done for so many years, $12.50. I went and spoke to the board. The board said, go back at $18.50. I did that. I went back to him at $16.50. He kept saying $12.50, $12.50, $12.50. Ultimately, the board got a fairness opinion. We evaluated $12.50. We were trading $9.25, and we thought that it made sense given the markets and the meltdown that was ahead. So we agreed, and then it was a battle. And because it was the nastiest, plainest fight to buy a company Warren's ever been through. So it took a matter of 6 to 8 months, because our market cap was larger than all the other publicly traded manufactured housing companies combined. Our shareholders...
$2 billion?
Yeah, well, 1.7.
1.7.
You're off slightly. That's pretty impressive. So they just didn't want us to go away, so we had a hard time getting the votes, even though we owned 27.6% of the company. We ended up at the second shareholder meeting, and then Cerberus, Blackstone, they were all raising their hands saying they would pay more, so they all came flying into our company and tore it apart over a matter of a month, and saying publicly they were going to pay more. And, you know, we were doing what we felt. That didn't feel like anybody would pay more, but if they would, bring it on. I mean, we were representing the shareholders, and our job was to maximize the value. But in the end, they ended up saying they wouldn't pay more. And, you know, Warren would have had to pay a small breakup fee. So sorry for the long-winded answer, but it was an amazing battle that's in the history books. And I came down with the shingles during it. I had our first baby was born during it she had to go through 26 different formulas to find out a reaction she was having. But I called up my dad first. I said, Dad, you know, this is really painful going through this process. And he said, well, don't you hang in there. And he said, don't worry, when I was in my 30s from stress, he had paralysis in the right side of his face. And then I called Warren. He told me about something else he had. He said, you'll get through it, don't worry. Probably another reason why when I come to Omaha, knowing that battle, and then knowing how wonderful it is to run a company now without all the public company constraints, how fortunate I am.
One CEO told me that he had a public company which he sold to Warren, and he quantified it as saving 50 days a year, or 1/5 of his time by being part of a conglomerate like Berkshire
Absolutely.
Hathaway. You agree with that? Is it?
Yes, and the bad news is that 20%, it comes in big waves. So it'll take you for 3 weeks at a time, it's.
Okay, so day one after being acquired, what happens at Clayton Homes, and what kind of oversight is Warren giving you on day one?
Yeah, Warren's the greatest. I have to be careful when I'm around my dad because I work for him, but Warren is the greatest leader I've ever worked for. Not only the smartest, financial genius, but he's an incredible leader. When you call him, I said, Warren, do you have a minute? He's, Kevin, I got all the time in the world. So he really does a great job, masterful way of putting you at ease. I'm still a nervous wreck, but he really, he does a great job. So I was always very comfortable calling him, and we spoke monthly for many, many, many years, and any kind of major acquisition, which used to be $5 million, and I just made one for $50 million, and he didn't find out until we asked for the money. Probably should have let him know quicker than that, but I shared with him just kind of overall, site builders were looking for. And he approved, I had him, he liked the model. So how it's been fun seeing how it evolves. So as with anybody else, you build a relationship and trust, then, but he would call me, it would just, he runs into networks with so many people and just asks questions. He does look at all the financials and he studies those, and you've got to be ready for any kind of question that can come from anywhere in the financials. But the communication, the big communication you get from Warren is what you've heard, and that is, how are you deepening and widening the moat? But before that, it's always, never contemplate an act you're not comfortable being on the front page of your local hometown paper. So we were already that kind of company, but being part of Berkshire, it really gives me a platform to make sure that, I'm sharing that constantly with our 17,000 team members about how to behave and how to represent. Reputation can be lost in, 40 seconds. Yeah.
So did the Berkshire folks send in a team like the other private equity guys?
No. He said, send, don't make up anything special, send a package up here of stuff you've already got printed, and honestly, that's it. And we only started sending our normal monthly financial package, and they would consolidate that into the Berkshire. Now, they've made a few suggestions, but they're minor, and that's exactly how we still do it today.
So you send monthly a balance sheet, income statement, any major capital expenses?
Right.
And your compensation, how did it look before and after?
Warren wants to, I was running a publicly traded company, and Warren wants me to continue to, do a competitive analysis and, just make sure I'm paid generally like I am still a publicly traded company. But greed takes over, and you've heard Charlie and Warren, none of us internally share compensation because it shouldn't bother me that the head of Lennar or whoever, makes $40 million. I mean, that's just completely insane and unrealistic. So I lob off all the outliers and kind of come up with what's a fair compensation, and that's what I pay myself and the people that report to me.
And did he ever come visit you?
He does. I think he buys a lot of companies all the time and never visits, but we asked him to, and he wanted to. That was 15 years ago, and great experience because I took him to one of our home building facilities. He loved that. He and the board are going to come to Knoxville and visit one of our home building facilities. That way they'll get to visit Pilot Flying J, which they're in the process of acquiring. They're based out of Knoxville as well, so that'll be a great experience having them there. While they were in Knoxville 15 years ago, I sat Warren at the table with Jim Haslam, who is the CEO of Pilot Flying J, the largest diesel seller, truck stops in America. And they hit it off. They talked about baseball the whole time.
So this was 15 years ago.
It was.
Wow.
It was. So Warren, I think he did come back through Knoxville one other time. But yeah.
And did the Heslin family ask you about your experience selling to Berkshire, and what'd you say?
They did. So Jimmy Haslam, his father founded the company, and the Haslam family, you know, there will never be anybody that gives more money philanthropically in the East Tennessee area than they have, and now they're wonderful, wonderful family. And so Jimmy he's been to the Berkshire shareholder meeting a couple of times, and he came and visited me and asked for my experience not that long ago about being a Berkshire company, brought his wife, and then later brought Mr. Senior, Jim Haslam, came and brought one of the grandchildren, which I thought was really cool because Jim has passed along some of his shares and everything to the future generations, and he brought one of them to represent the G3s, the grandchildren's, and so yeah, it was fun for me to share with them that I don't know that it's a great fit for them to be part of Berkshire. That's their decision, but I shared with them it's been wonderful, an incredible experience for us, and so I was happy that they came to the conclusion, and now are over the next few years. I guess over 5 years, Berkshire will have the majority of that. And I'm not taking credit from the acquisition because Warren knows there's a few of his friends that were also recommending and suggesting that company. I'm excited to be on the board of Pilot Flying J. So there's 2 board seats. So Mark Hamburg, the CFO, and I will serve on the board and you know, keep an eye on them and represent Berkshire as we buy more and more of the company.
Well, what's the worst thing you could say about your experience with Berkshire?
I don't know that I can hardly come up with anything. You know, there's a few days where I thought, you know, not having that public rat race of having to prepare for that quarterly call. I think there was, you know, it's like when you sell it's your baby that you build. The first year or two are the most difficult. And we tell people when we acquire them now, you know, you're going to have some weird feelings the first year or two. And it's when you're in that rhythm of being public, all of a sudden you've got to shift. You've got to replicate it in a healthy way. And it took us a while to replicate that now where, you know, how I have my management team and how we create our dashboards and, you know, and how I compensate them had to shift and change. And it's a way better experience now, but it takes a while to make that transition. So once you get through that, there's no negatives. I can tell you though, with Warren, you know, yes, he's the ultimate sugar daddy for us, right? Because we get all this capital, and I don't have to go beg on Wall Street anymore. But I did get the phone call in that 07, 08 crash that you need to go find capital. You can't assume that Berkshire is going to continue to provide all this capital. So I understood that, and we were scrambling to find alternative sources. The neat thing is that if I can find cheaper cost of capital right now, he'll let me go get it. And we've done that twice. One of the GSEs bought our mortgages to help with their affordable housing goals. So that was, you know, and he's allowed us to basically piggyback on a double and AAA credit rating for this many years. We pay, it used to be 100 basis points, and he lowered that to 50 basis points. Because as he grew, he was a little bit concerned. I mean, Berkshire was so much smaller back then that you know, because we knew we were going to have $12 billion outstanding all the time, and he thought that could hurt the credit rating, but it didn't. And we did kind of cap out in that 12 to 14 billion. So I think once he lowered that to, yeah.
So Mark, in his previous presentation, said that Warren asked CEOs 2 questions. What would it cost to destroy the moat at Clayton Homes?
Yeah, I heard that question. I should have prepared for it.
What would it cost to hurt your business?
Yeah, the moat, as we get into a few other questions, I think you'll see, being part of Berkshire, the moat is so much wider and deeper now because of the investments that we've been able to make in team member experience and customer experience, and it's just more. Capital is not even a material part of that moat. It's how you run the business for the long term and those things. So it's priceless. I don't think you can. It would be billions of dollars, the value of the moat and what it would cost to destroy it. So I'm not saying we get this giant competitive advantage against our competitors either. We kind of do, but it's not just in the product. I mean, honestly, the products we build we think we're a lower cost provider, but it's not a material difference from our competitors. It's truly, the people you would bring into the organization, and it's all about the systems and processes and culture of a company is what makes it special, and maturity. I mean, we've been at this so long now that we've learned how to build systems and processes and where we have a really engaged workforce to where they are making us better every day.
Isn't your cost of capital a competitive advantage compared to what are you paying for capital versus your competitors? Wouldn't that be a...
It is a competitive advantage in the fact that we have virtually an unlimited amount of it. There's no question. But just because you will take some risk, and I'll try to be specific and give you a few examples of some risk that would have been hard to do as a publicly traded company. It's mainly hard though because it's not that we were only an 8% debt to capital company. It's not so much taking on more debt. It's that, in that quarterly earnings rat race, a lot of these investments I'm getting ready to mention, are 3 to 5 to 10 year paybacks. And how do you justify that when you're now? That's a great CEO today that will make those kind of investments and ignore, publicly traded company pressures. You should do that because making an investment in improving, we realize that too, to get great at what Warren said, be a customer-focused company. We stepped back from that and realized, and I heard the CEO, Mary of Johns Manville, say this too. You can't expect a great team member experience until you create a really great team member experience. So we've been working hard on these 17,000 team members that join our team to have an awesome atmosphere where they are engaged and they feel like they're valued and they will give you more. And I can go on about examples of that. I mean, we increased our pay in our production facilities by $2 an hour in the last year alone. I mean, everybody talks about this labor shortage right now. We're building out these incredibly beautiful lunch eating facilities in our 40 plants across the country where people, they deserve to have a great place. We're putting in these cool zones within our plants. I was in that window plant just the other day, and one of them asked me about, are you going to give us all $1,000 like all these other companies did because of the tax break? It's a great question, right? This line worker just walks up and hits me with that. And I said, well, let me tell you what we're thinking right now. I mean, we're going to keep looking at that, but I can tell you what I think we'll do even more for the team here at this facility, and that is that we want to put in a bonus program here that will give everybody, because in all of our home building plants already today, we have a profit and loss statement on the wall, and our team members get 15 to 20% of the pre-tax profit. You talk about engaging a workforce to care about every line item and why they want to reduce scrap and waste and overtime and all that. They get a piece of the action. They feel like owners. So we're going to put that, and I mentioned that to him, in place in our window plant. He said, that sounds good. And then we're going to air condition the plant. And he was like, man, I'd way rather you do all that than the $1,000. I mean, $1,000 will be a one-time. So, that's the great things that will come from the tax reform too, making those kind of investments. And we're doing them. We feel like You know, it was $100 million to us.
Don Worcester was here earlier today, Kevin, and he said that he visited Clayton Homes, and when he walked in, he says it felt like a Berkshire company. What do you think it was about the feel of your company that made him feel that? What was he feeling?
A little folksy, family, you know, caring, and then transparency. You know, to see, you know, we try to communicate like Warren does in his shareholders letter, like he's writing to, is it an aunt? I forgot what he.
Writing to his older or younger sister.
Yeah, we have pictures of Warren in our office, you know, that says that never contemplated acts. You're not told you come to be on the front page of the paper. I mean, so that we really, honestly, we had a lot of that atmosphere prior to Berkshire, and I was fortunate that my dad built an incredible company.
Have you ever had that feeling that Don had walking into your company, walking into another Berkshire subsidiary, that you just felt like a Berkshire company?
Yeah, with some of the companies, yeah, I mean, really a lot of them. Through the Loom and McLean. I'm trying to think of, but yeah. It's been wonderful sharing with the, you know, it's all voluntary, but more and more of the companies now are helping each other. You're like, and it's so motivating for our team. Let me give you an example. Like our head of tax is helping Berkshire's tax department. I mean, how motivating for this lady to be in Knoxville, Tennessee, and she's spending a lot more and more time helping Berkshire's tax department. Our head of IT security is head of the Berkshire IT Council, you know, where they're all constantly, it's all voluntary, but most every, you know, and there's, you know, John's Mansville is heading up the purchasing power. So we're leveraging purchasing power across all the Berkshire entities now. You know, when I need help from IBM, which I did recently, you know, there's a Berkshire person over all the IBM accounts, and I mean, they swooped in and helped overnight. So this is, the benefits are really growing, and Warren was genius at how he kind of let it evolve instead of forcing all that. But it's happening on its own.
We're going to open it up for audience questions here. I'm fascinated with the tiny home movement, and I know that you're going to have another. What are we going to see on the exhibit floor tomorrow and Saturday?
We decided to not bring a home this year for good reason, I believe. You'll see a lot of technology displayed. So we're going to change the way people buy a home. So when you walk through our booth tomorrow, you'll see, because we do all forms of housing, from the tiny home to modular, manufactured housing, site-built housing, multifamily. So as you walk up, you decide what form of housing you're interested in. So in your case, the tiny home, you'll go right to that giant touch screen, and you'll drill down and start picking out, you know, which tiny home, and then you can use the customizer to pick out what decor and fixtures and all that. So we get a lot of PR out of the Berkshire shareholder meeting. We launched a whole new class of homes last year here. So this year it's all about the technology. So when I finish up with you, I'm going to do 5 media interviews talking about all of that and building that up.
Excellent. Look forward to seeing it. Questions?
My name is Leroy Ide, Austin, Texas. My question is in regards to handicap accessible housing. Are you, when I search for that, all I ever find is Oakmark, or I think it's Oakmark, offers that. Are you going to start offering that, and will you ever have it as an exhibit?
I get asked that. I think it's more and more. We are a high production, you know, the way we build indoors, it's a car assembly line with, you know, and more robotics all the time. So to put in production a kind of one-off really jacks up the cost of all the other homes that we build. What we're going to have to do is take an Alabama facility of ours and start building big block runs of handicap homes, because it kind of wreaks havoc when we try to mix it in with various plants. But I really want to take that on this year to get better in that. Our facilities of the 40, at least 12 or 20 would say they have good options today, but it's not, the website should take you straight to it. It should be so much easier than it is today. So we've got a lot of work there to do. Thank you.
Question right here.
Yes, hi. Kevin, great listening to you today. As a former line worker for Skyline in my early days in door hanging cabinets, I think we both understand that. You caught my attention on the panelization, and so my question is, what percentage of the business will still be traditional, the way it is in the old days as it just went up the track, versus this new technology that you speak of? And do you see that someday we'll get away from the model within the building coming up the track and go totally to some type of a small panelization in the future?
Yeah, thank you for the question. Nice to talk to you. Skyline was the first manufactured housing company in the industry. More and more home builders will move to panelization because labor is getting incredibly tighter and tighter. And in America, a new site-built home is approaching $400,000 now. It's so out of reach. Home ownership in America is at the lowest percentage, 63%. You have to go back into the 60s to find it that low. So because land prices now are going up and building costs, it's just out of control. So manufactured housing sits down here, and including land, we're at like 120. And so this gap has widened out, and that's why there's this real need, and we are positioned to affect this affordability housing crisis better than most. So they will have to start doing panelization, and that's a part of the answer. It won't take over manufactured housing. The house we showed here last year is a manufactured home. All that means is it was built to the federal building code, and then it was shipped out in 2 sections. But most everybody that walked through that house last year asked me, how long did it take to build this home here? Because it had a steep pitch roof, a garage, a porch. It matters less and less all the time where it's built. I mean, it's built to the federal code. It's built out of the same materials as site builders use on site. So the site builders are trying to come down. Panelization is part of the answer, and we're going to be the first company that does a closed panel. And that means that the panel that comes out, that lays flat on a flatbed, will already have the insulation, electrical, drywall, all that already on it. So all that's kind of evolving too.
Where's the microphone at? Right here.
Hi, Kevin. It's Nicole with the Wall Street Journal.
Hi, Nicole.
I wanted to ask you about healthcare, because Berkshire has announced that it's working with Amazon and Jpmorgan to lower healthcare costs. And I'm curious, is that something, the rising healthcare costs, how does that affect you at Clayton? And is that something that you've talked to other Berkshire CEOs about? Is that something you're collaborating on?
We have, and there's been a council, again, voluntary, that's been around, I think, 5 years. And so that's been helpful because we do try to leverage purchasing power already. And the good thing is you get to see how our costs are compared to all the other Berkshires. So you think you're doing a great job, then you find out it's maybe not as great as you thought. So we're not forced to change, but if I'm remembering correctly, we moved from Blue Cross to Cigna to take advantage of some Berkshire, buying opportunity. So we keep learning and growing that way. Tomorrow there's a panel at the Berkshire Manager that's going to give us more information about what you talked about. So I look forward to learning there, and I salute the efforts because I can tell you exactly how much it is per home, and it continues to go up. So it's another factor that's driving housing, to be unaffordable. Thank you.
Sandeep?
Yeah, I'm Sandeep Kapadia from, I live in Dubai. Thanks for a great presentation. I just wanted to, can you please elaborate a little bit on the Moat, what you had built, what you expressed a little bit earlier, how you had thought of it, well, in the beginning when you were independent, and how it has changed, the pattern. Has there been some kind of influence of that kind of thinking in the company, of building a moat and things like that, which came from Berkshire, or even just how you all personally have kind of developed it?
Sure. I mean, overarching, it's how does that moat deepen and widen? And
Well, the moat that you had before you were a Berkshire wholly owned company versus now.
yeah, I think the biggest part is just having the confidence to make investments. Wellness centers. We teach wellness now across the whole 17,000 team members. We make major investments in that area. And you can't point to an exact ROI, but now we see it happening in our healthcare cost is one example. And then making these investments on our team member experience, building out, spending millions on eating facilities, raising the base pay. And I'll share with you on that base pay increase, it cost us nothing because the team members, the team members, whether they were working more hours than they needed to, they were figuring out how to make a reasonable living. And so since we gave that pay increase and it kind of added to the bonus level, we have gained efficiency to pay for all that. It was a total leap of faith that it might happen, but it played out. So, now what we're doing with customer experience and building out all these technology, we're spending $55 million in the next 18 months on the technology that you'll see to where even after, not just picking out your home, but before, when you get your home and make the decision, it's going to give you constant updates. It's actually going to show you on the app your actual home going down the production city and being built. Because we realized that through our touch point mapping of the customer journey, their big pain point was, once I say yes, I don't get a lot of communication about where I stand. So just all those kinds of investments, and then I can go on about that. We would not have gone anything near as fast on those kinds of smart investments that are showing to have, and we're experiencing a great return on investment.
Hey Kevin, Kyle Gay from Boston. My question is on compensation. So I spend a lot of time with permanently owned businesses, and this is like chaotic in every business I interact with. As you made the switch from public to private and you put in these plans, what areas, and I know you guys don't disclose like the granular nature of it, but where areas have you found have been most useful? I know like when you talk about benchmarking to public companies and building a universe to compensate management, have you found anything that really outsized incentivized them for long-term performance? Is it like multi-year targets? Is it really getting them invested in the culture? Or is it just, making cash compensation equivalent to the, stock plus cash you would have at a traditional company, maybe like a private equity company or public company that have capital market events driving long-term compensation incentives? Just do you have any commentary that'd be helpful?
Compensation, how you're arranging compensation, how it was different before and after. You spoke to that earlier about sharing a percentage of the, posting publicly your P&L, and they get a percentage of that. Are there any other metrics that you're using? Yeah,
and I also picked up on a little bit of the metrics that we look at, what are important, how are we, so for instance, those 6 site-built housing companies we bought, we still force rank them on return on asset, equity, and we're trying to beat all the other site-built housing companies out there with those. And then, we're looking at constantly all of our competitors and seeing what their utilization is by factory. So we just really, within all the different companies we have, we're constantly benchmarking. Greg Abel, by the way, is just fantastic at that. He brings another great value to all of us he's always, being in the energy companies, he's always had to do a longer term planning than we typically have. So we were moving to 5, we may even consider 10, because when you make a lot of these big investments around the moat and technologies and everything, you've got to look further out. Compensation, we keep it really simple though. Compensation, I'm really paid the same way I was before. We like paying on pre-tax profit. We think that's an important metric. We think EBITDA misses things so that's our favorite. variable. And then I like what and Greg helped me with this recently. I bounced it off him. So then you need, that's really an annual, pay program for my leadership team. But beyond that, you need a long-term hook. And Warren, he didn't have me sign a contract. I mean, I could have left day one. All these companies we acquire, we don't have them sign a contract, so they could leave. I mean, that's an incredible amount of trust. But, so I don't care. I don't want one of my senior managers hanging around 5 years because I've got some long-term big, he's going to knock it out of the park program. I hate people that do that. So our long-term incentive program for my senior team, it's actually an annual program. It's a running 3 years. They earn a third. But it's really based on what we call MBOs, management by objectives. And so, like this year, we set, what are the things that I believe will make this company better long-term? And that's focusing on those technologies, modernization of our technology systems, building out this new class of homes that's going to be really competitive, trying to help us hit that $200,000 price point. These are these big rocks that my leadership team wouldn't spend enough energy on those because it hurts their short-term comp. But now we're all focused on it. I mean, there's milestones this year that we got to achieve, and we're checking them off, and who owns each of those. So that's kind of how I structure it.
Kevin, you brought up Greg Abel, and now he's been made vice chairman in charge of non-insurance operations. How'd you feel about that? And
he was absolutely the right choice. I mean, it was brilliant how Warren chose Ajit for insurance and Greg to do non-insurance. Greg is like Warren. He's one of these incredibly approachable people. And I reached out. He came and visited our company. Our leadership team took to him immediately. He's that kind of a person, not just because he's a Canadian, which Canadians are generally terrific people to be with. But that was just really, really smart to go that route. And then, tonight, Warren and Charlie will speak at our managers' gathering. Greg and Ajit get a good bit of time tomorrow. Warren's made this statement last year around a group of us that Berkshire will do better when he's gone.
do you believe that?
And when you first heard that, I said, the more I thought about it, I don't want to wish that on it, and I don't want to say it, but I see why he says that, and he started describing why it would be, but there'll be, the organization will be in great hands, and just like you said, Mark, I mean, you build a great culture and a great process, and it goes on, and that's what all of us Berkshire managers are doing. This is not the Kevin Clayton show. This is about Clayton homes and building processes that will last, many generations. Yeah.
Right here?
Yes. Edis Hobson from Houston, Texas. During your 6 to 8 month acquisition process, was your team aware of the potential of the acquisition? And if so, how did you balance that with not just your upper management, but managers or officers, but your managers, maybe even your staff, as well as did you go about business as usual, or as far as the operational side, did you slow things down a little bit? Just kind of a little bit overview of that.
Yeah, it was a tough time because they were all totally. The only way to be as a leader in the crisis moments is to overly communicate, just step it up and be completely transparent. And so yeah, they were in the loop but Cerberus brought in Dan Quayle to tell everybody in our company that our company was going to be wonderful once we were acquired by Cerberus. And then my management team, some people looked up what Cerberus meant, and it was the two-headed dogs that guard the gates of hell. So it was a challenging time to say the least. But I just said, yeah, business as usual, do what you do, and then honestly, all these 20-year-olds young 30-year-olds were coming in saying, oh yeah, we can start running all your facilities on 3 shifts and, shut down 10 plants, consolidated, and all these. These are things we've tried, many times over. They don't work, So it would have, we would have had to have sold if we'd have had a higher offer. But it would have been not a pleasant environment, which is why people are scared to death who they sell their company to. They care. All 6 of these home builders we've bought sold to us because they trust me, Keith Holbrooks, who runs home building, and then they ultimately trust Warren that we're not going to come in and screw it all up. So 2 of those home builders are here with me this whole weekend. I don't know if I can do it this year. I'm going to try. I'll try to get their pictures with Warren. And then he signed a share. One of them last year bought a share. He signed it. And then we bought a mortgage company 2 weeks ago, and Josh and his wife, Natasha, are here too.
Where's the microphone?
It's right here. Yeah. Peter Gustafsson from Denmark. First of all, a comment. I think it's very, very impressive that Warren has been able to buy so many owner companies and keeping management or the owner family still running the business. I think that's a great achievement. Then the question is about the acquisition of Clayton Homes. You and your family and the board said around 20 or whatever you said the price should be, and Warren said 12.5. After the acquisition, did you ask Warren, or did your family ask Warren how he got to 12.5? And if so, is that the formula you use now when you acquire companies, 12.5, or is it the 20?
Yeah, thank you for. No, I really never did actually ask him exactly how he came up with 1250, but I have an idea, and it is, his best guess of that. We were profitable. We were making $157 million in pre-tax profit. So he took that number and he came up with $1.7 billion. So and he was reputationally, he knew that the future cash flows were predictable and likely to grow given we don't have a capital problem anymore. So we were one of the few acquisitions he's made that said his bringing capital would actually help the company. But he charged us, he charged a premium, the 1%. But he was actually excited about that because it was really one of the first times he's issued commercial paper. And in talking to him, he was really excited to see who's going to be buying that commercial paper. So it was that multiple of earnings, and
So 11 times pre-tax earnings. Did he subtract anything for debt? Were you carrying any debt?
We had none.
No debt.
Correct.
So about 11 times earnings, pre-tax earnings.
There may be minimal debt, so you're in the right range. Yeah.
And that would be what that formula you would be using today to buy?
No, I'm more conservative than that.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm more conservative because, we're buying a lot of assets too when we're acquiring these home builders, and I want more of a safety margin. And we're new to that business. Yeah. But thank you. Good question.
Hi, João from Brazil. Just on the acquisitions that you are doing, the 6 companies that you mentioned, when this opportunity appears, how does that work with Warren Buffett? If you bring to him, he gives any opinion, you originate and brings to him, or you do it almost by yourselves? And after the acquisition, is there any integration? Because I have a feeling that in the Buffett systems, you guys are almost always against layoffs and against big cost cutting. Is there any integration that is possible with new companies to gain efficiency that you made? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. It's good. 2 pieces of that, and I'll try to give you specific examples to show you. You know, when I shared with him the, I think it was $120 million to pay for Oakwood homes in Denver, he looked it over and thought it made sense because it returns. So he really hasn't. So I kind of really wanted to work with him on the front end of kind of guidelines, a model, and so as long as we're staying in that box. The good thing about that though is like now we're watching. NVR is the best home builder out there about return on capital because they use a bunch of options instead of owning land. They did send me something written up about that, and that was great to get that. And they call that an asset-light model of a home builder. We are doing more of that. So here's kind of, now that we have the 6, and we'll probably grab a few more, but our goal is not to go out like a lot of other companies and buy a dozen or 20 home builders around. We really we're building out a good geographic footprint, and then with capital, we're going to turn them loose to grow. But what we're doing, it just similar to Warren, is we get those 6 home builders together fairly frequently, and they share best practices. And then we start seeing which of those 6 are really excelling in certain areas, and we start, really connecting them. So, for instance, one of our home builders right now out of Nashville is learning a great deal from the Denver builder about how to take control lots under option, and in some cases control land for only $800. And NVR's average is $4,000 under option. So it's that sharing, and it's not in a forceful way, but the 6 know that we really want to see them improve in every area. So our Kansas City builder is one of the slowest at building times, and he's learning right now from the others how to get, so hope that's helpful.
Got a question right here.
Thank you. You said when you acquire a new company, you try to make sure you can survive in the downturn. You also said another downturn is coming. Can you tell everyone here what do you see in the market? Another downturn is coming. You said 2 or 3 years time.
Yeah, and then you're going to want me to say when is the downturn, right? So you can, just on the home building side of what we do, you can certainly, you hear people all the time, through 2020 looks good, and then from there on out, the demographics have never been as good as they are right now for home building. The baby boomers went through their spending years in their late 30s and 40s, and that's what excelled the housing boom last time. Well, now you've got a group of the millennials that are bigger than the baby boomers, and they're big time entering their home buying years, and they're going to stay there a long time. So, you can make an optimistic case of why home building could climb back up to its peak and maybe stay there a while. So you can take from that what you want to. I'm not counting on that. We're trying to be much more conservative than that, but it's going to be a while. And barring some crisis, the economy looks very strong for a while.
Hi, Kevin. Kendrick Wong from Honolulu. I was wondering, with the interest rates going up, how are you impacted, and how do you prepare for higher interest rates in your business?
I apologize, my hearing's a little from flying.
He's asking how you're anticipating the interest rate increase and how that's going to impact your business.
It does hurt. No matter, we sell homes from $50,000 to $500,000, and it used to be people would think that the lower price points would not get it hurt as bad. That's not true at all. Blue collar workers, the difference between a payment of $535, which is our average, and that going to $600 plus is a big, big deal. So it hurts just as bad. So we hate to see that, but we also, this mode and getting more efficient in how we build and getting pricing down can offset the interest rates. And that's why in America, we've got to change the way we build. You can't have $400,000 new homes and interest rates going up and expect home ownership to get back to where it needs to be.
How long does it take you, Kevin, to build a home from scratch? If I purchased a home and I could watch it on my phone, how long would it take from beginning to end?
Assuming there's no long backlogs at our plants, really 60 days you're living in it.
60 days. So.
And if you pick out one out of inventory, it could be 30 days. So when people need a home, we're able to do it a lot quicker than going through traditional building methods.
And what's the average site-built home from beginning to?
Site-built home builders are, we can build a home in Atlanta right now in 58 to 64 days. But still, it takes 2 years to get the land ready and developed. So it's...
And we have...
but a custom built, which is really what you're talking about, out in rural America, I mean, good luck in 6 to 9 months, right?
We have an audience that's global, all 6 continents. No one from Antarctica, but we're working on some penguins. How is the U.S. housing market, or house builders, which you're the leader in and the largest, how is that going to impact the rest of the world, or will it? Is there anything that we're doing in the U.S. they're going to feel in South America or Asia? Or
a lot of what we're doing is unfortunately not transferable. In a lot of the world, there's wood is not as affordable and abundant, so concrete. I can tell you, we went to a conference, though, in Austin, Texas last week and saw a 3D printer building a concrete home. So for the world, there's a lot of great technology that's coming, which is wonderful. Imagine that happening in Puerto Rico and other places that so desperately need help. We have a lot of patents. We've shipped homes overseas, but it's not a great way to do it. And in a lot of countries we look at and consider, once you get on the ground, a lot of the ways we ship homes down the road, the road infrastructure is not that great. So we likely will lend our expertise to show a country how to use our technologies. We probably won't invest a lot of our own capital.
Are you the leader? Is the U.S. the leader in home building, or is there another continent that has superior home building?
There's countries well ahead of us in automation. The problem they do is that they build such a higher-end customized home that the costs are very high. There's not good examples of real affordable houses being built in a production environment. It'll happen. Yeah.
Okay. Another question? Right here.
Thanks. In the spirit of this weekend, can you share some light on the events and interactions that occur between the operating managers and the CEOs of Berkshire Hathaway?
Just working with the other Berkshire.
What's happening between the operating managers, the CEOs, the interaction this weekend? What's going to happen? Is that your question?
Yeah, we'll get the opportunity to, again, it's a voluntary basis, but Warren and Charlie will be with us tonight, and reception, dinner, and get a good opportunity to network with all the other managers. And then we'll have, in the past years, we've had panels where, a lot of us will volunteer to lead a particular subject matter, and since Greg and Ajit are new, they'll talk a little more than normal, so we'll do that till about noon tomorrow.
Other questions here?
Hello, Mark Moorland, Team Invest Australia. Could you talk to your attitude to the subsidiaries, the 6 companies you've purchased? Will you be the Warren to them as Warren is to you, or will you manage them more directly, and would you consider merging any of them for efficiencies, or would that not be the case?
So when we make an acquisition, do we sometimes go in and really change out and fold them into us? No, we haven't done that at all. The only exception would be if we bought one manufactured housing plant, but we've never done that where you had the owner and operator staying around. We like Warren, we really haven't had anybody that didn't like us and left. So we haven't had a situation where we're ready to, if they screw up bad enough, or they have a sick culture. But outside of that, we would tend to let them, and then, share our best practices. I mean, people want to do better. If you show them ways how to get better, they generally always will rise up and get their teams there. Yeah.
Does anyone call you, Kevin, wanting to sell to you or sell to Berkshire?
Yes.
Of the six,
I'd say of the six,
did anyone call you, or did you?
about half. No, maybe only two sort of reached out to us. We went after the others, so when we wanted them for their reputation and knowledge that we needed. And they appreciated us saying, we don't know how to run site-built housing. We're going to let you keep running your show, and where we can add value, we will. And we want you to network with the other builders and get better. That's
Okay. How about a question right here?
Hi, my name is Raj Shah from London. Thank you for a great presentation. My question focuses on the comment you made around being more customer focused. You said you looked at Net Promoter Scores and had built much beyond that. Could you expand on the types of metrics and what you look at, and also how that feeds back into your process to help you expand your moat and build deeper moats?
Are you getting more customer focused?
Yeah, so what we did is we went and hired Joseph Michelli, who wrote the books on Starbucks, excuse me. Driven to Delight is a great book that he wrote about Mercedes-Benz journey from J.D. Power's number 22 to number 1. Really good guy, smart guy, and Dairy Queen, John
Gaynor
had used him.
Right.
And I picked up on that, and so we brought him in. We used him for about 18 months, and we built out our 2020 vision map. And I can graphically show you exactly where we want to try to be by 2020. One component of that is we want to have 25% of our business coming from referrals. A year and a half ago, we were at 14. We're at 17.3 right now on our. So every salesperson in our company, actually, they can tell you what their NPS score and what their referral percentage is. So those are some of the dashboard metrics, but we're training everybody in the company. What's the language with scripting? How do you talk on the phone? And then we have these 5 cultural components about, what we want to stand for. And it really is all about, turning people loose to fix customer issues. But we built out those journey maps across the whole organization. So every department now knows where their customer pain points are, and they're engaged to eliminate those pain points. So the good thing about this journey we've been on, we built about 8 years ago our own leadership development program called Ignite. And that's the first step. So until you learn how to behave and treat each other, and senior management's 100% bought into that, because you can't have a great culture and environment for people to thrive in until you build out and teach. So if you've got a good leadership development program, you also learn how to authentically lead. Everybody can lead well. Then that shows you what kind of people you want to attract to the company and hire. So then you get better team members that way, and we're leading better. Then you can start doing these things on improving the team member experience, investing in the team. Then they'll deliver on the customer experience. So we're really lucky to kind of go in that sequential order to get us to where we are now. And it's dramatically, Net Promoter Score, that metric, world class is 60%. And GE was, I shouldn't quote that, but they were in our building, and years ago, the 60s. I mean, we're ahead of Apple on Net Promoter Score. We're at 74.3, which is great. So and compensation's tied to that too. I mean, we mean it. I look at customer complaints as they come in, and stay very involved in those. That's how you can make a difference.
And you still have an open office yourself at
Yeah, we do.
HQ?
Yeah, yep.
And as the last question, Kevin, I'm wondering what your father would say about Clayton Homes as the founder and watching you lovingly lead this business that he started.
Yeah, he's a big fan, very appreciative that we've just tried to build on and improve the great culture. Reputation was everything to him. I mean, every customer complained. I mean, he would grab them and go fix the issue. He's a lawyer by education, and last thing he wanted to do is hire a bunch of lawyers to go fix customer complaints. You know, when you've got a customer telling you something, there's a lesson to be learned, and there's something there wrong. So he loves it. You know, it would have been hard for him to keep leading the company. When he sees the investments we made, he's like, oh my God, you know, that's. And then he sees, now it's been fun for both of us to see that these investments in wellness and team member experience and customer experience and all that have had really high, you know, ROIs too. So he loves coming out. He was running banks, and his bank board meetings are in our office. So I mean, he's always bringing people out there, and he loves it. So it's a lot of fun. I mean, and occasionally, you know, a customer will get to him, and man, he jumps on it quick and lets us know, you know, got to get this taken care of. It's like, yeah. How old? Yeah, he's 83.
Is he still skiing?
Skis and flies a jet, single pilot, flies a helicopter, fortunately with a pilot in there with him. The two of the Walton grandkids are going to be in Knoxville Sunday, and he's going to fly them around the Smokies into some event there, so yeah.
Well, please join me in thanking Kevin Clayton.
Thanks.
Thank you, Kevin.
Appreciate it. Let's see, got a box of chocolates for you. Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to take a quick break, and next up is Ron Olson.